Maybe if you had real ambition, you wouldn't be delivering pizzas at 30, my mother-in-law said. She said it at her dinner table, in front of my wife, in front of my daughter, in front of a roast that cost less than the tip I made on a delivery that afternoon. My mother-in-law Gloria has measured me since the day her daughter Natalie brought me home. She measured my car, she measured my apartment, she measured my shoes, which is something I didn't know people did until Gloria looked at my feet and said, "Interesting choice," which is the phrase people use when they want to say wrong choice but need plausible deniability. I deliver pizzas. I have delivered pizzas for 3 years. Before that, I drove for a food delivery app. Before that, I worked at a warehouse. Before that, I worked construction. I have worked since I was 16. I have not stopped. Gloria sees the job. She does not see the working. She sees a man in a company shirt carrying a thermal bag to a door, and she classifies the man by the bag, and the bag is the summary, and the summary says, no ambition. What Gloria does not see, because Gloria has never asked, is what the pizza delivery job is for. It is for this. 3 years ago, I started a business, a small batch hot sauce company. I make the sauce in a commercial cooking space I rent on weekends. I sell it online. I sell it at farmers markets. I sell it to 4 local restaurants who carry it on their tables. The business makes money. Not a lot. Not yet. But the trajectory is upward, and the upward is measured in months, and the months have been consistent, and the consistency is what separates a hobby from a company, and the company is mine, and the company's name is my daughter's middle name, and my daughter is 3, and she doesn't know that her middle name is on a bottle of hot sauce that her father makes in a rented space on Saturdays, but she will know someday, and the knowing is the point. The pizza delivery job is the bridge, the income that keeps the lights on while the business grows. The delivery job is not the ambition. The delivery job is the funding of the ambition. But Gloria doesn't know this because Gloria never asked what the delivery job was for. The comment happened 3 Sundays ago. Gloria said, maybe if you had real ambition, you wouldn't be delivering pizzas at 30. She said it while cutting her roast, without looking up, as though the sentence is an observation about weather and not a demolition of her son-in-law's professional identity, conducted over a family dinner where her 3-year-old granddaughter was sitting in a high chair eating mashed potatoes and absorbing the frequency of a grandmother who classified her father as ambitionless while he sat across the table with sauce under his fingernails from the batch he had made that morning. I didn't respond. Natalie looked at me. She didn't respond either. I picked it up the following Sunday. I brought a bag, not a thermal bag, a gift bag. I set it on Gloria's table before dinner. I said, I brought you something. She opened it. Inside was a bottle, my hot sauce, my label, my daughter's middle name on the front. She looked at it. She read the label. She said, what is this? I said, this is my business. I started it 3 years ago. I make it. I sell it. I deliver pizzas so the business can grow without debt. The pizza job is not the career. The pizza job is the investor. And the investor is me, in a company shirt, with a thermal bag, funding a company with my daughter's name on it. She looked at the bottle. She looked at me. I said, I didn't tell you because you never asked. You saw the shirt and you decided the shirt was the story. But the shirt is the first chapter. The sauce is the second. And the third chapter is a man who gets up at 5 a.m. to cook sauce, delivers pizzas from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., comes home and bathes his daughter and reads her a book and then updates his website until midnight, because midnight is when the ambition fits and the fitting is tight, but the fitting is mine. Gloria set the bottle down. She said, you should have told me. I said, you should have asked. Dinner continued. She didn't open the sauce that night, but the following Sunday when we came for dinner, the bottle was on her table, not in the cooking area, on the dinner table, next to the salt and the pepper, in the spot where the sentence had been. But there is one thing that happened after that Sunday that Gloria doesn't know about yet. The following Monday, I got an email from a distributor, a regional grocery chain. They had found my sauce at a farmer's market. They wanted to carry it in 47 stores across 3 states. The order was large enough that if I fulfill it, the pizza delivery job becomes optional. Not immediately, but within the year. The week after that email landed in my inbox, I called the rental company and upgraded from weekends to 3 days a week. Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. That meant my days looked like this. Up at 5 to prep ingredients, deliver pizzas from 11 to 7, drive to the rental space by 8, cook and bottle until midnight or later, go home, sleep for 4 hours, do it again. The schedule was not sustainable. I knew it was not sustainable, but the distribution order was real, and the real required a pace that the sustainable could not keep up with. Natalie noticed. The man who used to be home by 8 was now gone until 1 in the morning. She was sitting on the couch one night when I came through the door smelling like peppers and vinegar, and she said, what is going on with your schedule? I sat down next to her and I told her the truth, but I told her a small version of the truth. I said, just a few more stores want to carry it. She smiled, but I could see the thing behind the happy, which was a question she was already forming. She said, how many is a few? And I could feel the full answer sitting right behind my teeth. 47 stores, 3 states, a regional grocery chain, but I didn't let it out. I kissed Bailey on the forehead and said, I gotta get to the rental space early tomorrow. I'm going to head to bed. Natalie didn't push it, but she watched me walk down the hallway, and the watching was the sound of a question that had been asked but not answered. The following Sunday, we went to Gloria's for dinner. The bottle was still there. My bottle, my label, my daughter's middle name. Gloria had not mentioned it since the night I put it on the table. The bottle just sat there like a fact that nobody was discussing. But something was different this time. We were about halfway through dinner when Gloria put her knife down and looked at me and said, so how much does a bottle like this cost to make? The question came out clean and sharp. It was not a warm question. It was the kind of question an accountant asks. She was auditing me. I answered her honestly. I told her the cost of ingredients, the cost of the space rental, the cost of bottles and labels. She listened. She nodded once. Then she said, and how many do you sell a month? I gave her the number. She picked up her water glass and said, that's not enough to live on. I said, not yet. She set the glass down and said, yet is a word people use when they don't have a timeline. I said, I have a timeline. She said, what is it? I said, soon. Gloria looked at me for a long second. Then she picked up her fork and went back to eating and said nothing else. The silence that filled the table was not the old silence. The old silence was the silence of a woman who had already made up her mind. This silence was different. This was the silence of a woman who was waiting. 2 days later, Ian came to help me with a big cook. We were standing side by side at the bottling station, filling bottles, capping them, wiping them down. Ian looked over at me and said, "So have you told Natalie about the full deal yet?" I kept filling a bottle. I said, "Not yet. I want to wait until the contract is actually signed. I've been let down before." Ian nodded, but it was the kind of nod that means, "I heard you, but I don't agree." He capped a bottle and said, "You're not protecting her. You're protecting yourself from what it feels like if it falls apart in front of people." I didn't say anything because he was right. Ian lined up another bottle and said, "And what about Gloria? You said you were going to let her find it on the shelf." I said, "That's the plan." Ian stopped bottling. He looked at me straight and said, "That's not a plan. That's revenge dressed up like patience." The word revenge landed somewhere in my chest and stayed there. I didn't respond. 3 days later, the distributor sent another email. They wanted product samples with updated labeling and full nutritional information, professional packaging, not the hand-labeled bottles I had been selling at farmers markets with the labels I printed on my home printer and cut with scissors and stuck on with a glue stick while Bailey tried to eat the glue stick. I got quotes from 3 packaging companies. The cost was big. I sat at the table after everyone was asleep and I ran the numbers 4 times, and every time the numbers said the same thing. I would need to keep delivering pizzas for at least 2 more months past what I had planned. The timeline I told Gloria was soon. Soon just got pushed back. Every week the timeline stretches. Her words at the dinner table get a little more true. The following Saturday, I was at the farmer's market by 6 in the morning. By 9, it picked up. By 10, it was steady. And then a woman walked up to my table with her husband, and she picked up a bottle, and she looked at me and said, "I bought this last month. My husband put it on everything. We came back for 3 more." I looked at her, and I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Not happiness exactly. Not excitement. Proof. They bought 3 bottles. They left. I sold out by noon. That has never happened. I pulled into the driveway feeling better than I had felt in weeks. I walked through the front door. I walked past Bailey, kissed the top of her head, and turned the corner. Natalie was sitting at the table. Her laptop was open in front of her. She looked up at me when I walked in, and her face was not the face of a woman who was happy to see her husband come home early from a good market day. Her face was something else. It was still. She said, "47 stores?" I stopped walking. She said, "3 states?" She turned the laptop toward me. On the screen was my email, the chain with the distributor. She said, "I was looking for that recipe you bookmarked last week. Your email was open in a tab. I wasn't going through your stuff." I believed her. Natalie has never been the type to go through my things. She found it the way people find things, by accident, which is the worst way to find something that should have been given to you on purpose. She said, 47 stores, 3 states, and you told me a few more stores? I sat down across from her. She closed the laptop, slow, like she was closing a door to a room she thought she had been invited into, and just found out she hadn't. She said, "I am your wife. I have watched you leave at 5 in the morning and come home at midnight for 3 years. I have defended you to my mother. I have swallowed her comments. I have sat at that dinner table and listened to her say things about you that made me want to scream, and I didn't scream because I believed in what you were building. I have told Bailey that Daddy works hard because Daddy is building something, and you didn't think I deserved to know what the something just became?" I opened my mouth, and the only thing that came out was the truth, but it was the small truth again. I said, "I wanted to wait until it was sure." She looked at me and said, "I didn't need it to be sure. I needed it to be shared." That sentence hit me harder than anything Gloria ever said at any dinner table, because Gloria's words hurt from the outside. They landed on my skin. Natalie's words went past the skin and past the muscle and landed on the bone. She was quiet for a second. Then she said, "I'm proud of you. The deal is incredible. What you've built is incredible." And I waited for the but. She said, "But you kept this from me the same way you kept it from my mother. You made me earn the information the same way you made her earn it, and I am not her." The sentence landed and it rearranged everything. I had built a wall out of silence. I told myself the wall was strategy. I told myself the wall was patience. But the wall didn't have a door for the people who loved me and a different door for the people who judged me. It was just a wall. I sat at that table and I apologized. A real apology. I told her everything. The 47 stores, the 3 states, the distributor's name and the emails and the timeline. I told her about the packaging costs and how they pushed the timeline back. And then I told her about the plan. The plan to let Gloria find the bottle on the shelf at her grocery store. Natalie listened to all of it, and when I was done, she was quiet for a long moment, and then she said, "The shelf thing? Don't do that." I said, "Why not?" She said, "Because you're better than that, and because my mother doesn't need to be humiliated. She needs to be included. That's what she's never been. That's what she does wrong with you, and it's what you're about to do wrong with her." I sat with that. The shelf plan, the revenge dressed up like patience that Ian had called out, the plan suddenly looked different. It looked small. It looked like the kind of thing a man does when he is still trying to prove something to someone who already knows she was wrong, but doesn't know how to say it. The next morning, I sent an email to the distributor confirming my interest. The reply came back. They needed 2 things: a certificate of liability insurance and a production facility that met their food safety compliance standards. The space I rented 3 days a week did not qualify. It was clean, legal, properly licensed for small batch production and farmers market sales, but it was not a certified co-packing facility. The email did not say the deal was off. It said the deal was paused. I had just told Natalie everything. I had just opened the wall, and now the thing I had laid on the table was paused, and paused felt like dying, but I had to tell her, because the wall was down now, and the wall being down meant the information had to flow in both directions. I told her that night. I showed her the email. I said, "I need a co-packer, a certified facility that can produce at their scale and meet their standards." Natalie read the email. She looked at me and said, "How much does that cost?" I said, "I don't know yet, but more than I have." She nodded, the nod of someone who is recalculating. The next day I called Weaver. Weaver works in food service, manages production at a catering company. I told him about the co-packing requirement. He said, "Yeah, that's standard for any chain. They won't touch you without it. There's a place on the east side. They do co-packing for small brands. I've sent people there before." I said, "What's the catch?" He said, "Their minimum run is big, and they want a deposit up front, not small." He told me a number. The number was more than I had in savings and checking combined. Weaver let the quiet sit for a second, and then he said, "Can you borrow it? What about Natalie's family?" I almost laughed. I said, "You mean Gloria?" Weaver said, "I mean whoever has it." I said, "No." I didn't explain the number. I didn't need to. Asking Gloria for money would be like handing her a receipt for every judgment she ever made. That night I called Alexander. Alexander runs a small food brand. man, 2 years ahead of where I am now. I told him about the distributor's requirements. He said, co-packing is non-negotiable. Every chain requires it. If you can't produce at their standard, they move on. I said, how fast do they move on? He said, fast. You have a window. Could be weeks, could be a couple months. But if you miss it, they move on. They always move on. And then Alexander said something that felt like a rope thrown into a hole. He said, my co-packer might work with you. He takes referrals. If I send you to him, he might give you a better rate on the deposit. Smaller up front. Not guaranteed, but it's a door. I said, I'll take the door. Thursday came and I drove to the facility. It was on the other side of town. I walked in and the place was clean, professional, stainless steel everywhere. The owner walked me through the facility. He asked to see my recipe. He asked about my labeling. He asked about my sales history. I showed him everything. He said he could work with me. He said the deposit would be lower than the first place Weaver mentioned, but it was still a real number. The math said this: if I pick up extra delivery shifts for 6 weeks straight, every available shift doubles when I can get them. And if I put every single dollar from the farmers markets toward the deposit instead of back into supplies, I can make it. Barely. The margin between making it and not making it was so thin you could see through it. I sat in that car for 10 minutes. Then I went back inside and signed a letter of intent. I drove home. Natalie was at the table feeding Bailey dinner. I stood in the doorway and Natalie looked up and I said, I found a co-packer. He can meet the distributor's standards. I signed a letter of intent. She said, how much? I told her the number. She didn't flinch. She said, can we do it? I said, if I pick up extra shifts for 6 weeks, every shift, every market, every dollar goes to the deposit. She looked at Bailey, who was now smashing a piece of chicken flat with her palm and looking very pleased about it. Then Natalie looked back at me and said, then we do 6 weeks. 5 weeks in and I was running on fumes. Double delivery shifts during the day, farmers markets every Saturday, late nights on the phone and over email with the co-packer. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, Natalie stepped in. She didn't ask permission. She just did it. She took over the website updates. She handled order fulfillment for the online sales, packing boxes at the table after Bailey went to bed. We were a team, a real team, the kind of team where both people are carrying and neither person is keeping score. Sunday came and we went to Gloria's for dinner. I sat down at her table and I could feel the exhaustion in my bones. Gloria looked at me from across the table and said, you look terrible. It was not an insult. The old Gloria would have said it while cutting her roast without looking up. This Gloria said it while looking right at me, and the looking was the thing that made it different. I said, I'm tired. She said, from the pizzas? I paused. Natalie was sitting next to me. She wasn't going to answer for me. The decision about what goes through the open space where the wall used to be was mine. I said, from the business. It's growing faster than I expected. And the growing is expensive, and the expensive is why the pizza shifts have doubled. Gloria put her fork down. The way she puts her fork down when she's about to listen. She said, how expensive? And for the first time, I did not deflect. I did not say soon. I told her. I told her about the 47 stores. I told her about the distributor and the regional grocery chain. I told her about the co-packing facility and the food safety requirements and the deposit and the 6-week window that was now 5 weeks gone. And I told her the part that was hardest to say out loud, which is that I was $400 short and the deadline was Friday. Gloria was quiet. The kind of quiet that fills a room the way water fills a glass, all the way to the top, and you don't dare move because moving would spill it. Then she said, why didn't you ask me? I looked at her and said, because the last time I was at this table, you told me I had no ambition. Gloria's face changed. It was not anger. It was something older than anger. She said, I said that because I was scared for my daughter. I was scared she married a man who wouldn't build anything. My father was that man. He had dreams every week and finished none of them, and my mother paid for every single one with years she didn't get back. The table went silent. Bailey was in her high chair eating mashed potatoes. The same high chair she was in the night Gloria said the words that started all of this. The same mashed potatoes, the same table, but a different room because the people in it were different now. Gloria said, I was wrong about you. I knew I was wrong when I put the bottle on the table, but I didn't know how to say it because saying it meant I was wrong about more than just you. She stood up. She pushed her chair back and walked out of the dining room. Natalie looked at me. I looked at Natalie. Gloria came back. She was holding a checkbook. She sat down, opened it, and wrote a check. She tore it out and slid it across the table to me. I looked at the number. It was not $400. It was much more than $400. She said, this is not a loan. This is not an investment. This is the money I would have spent throwing my daughter a party if she had married the kind of man I thought she should marry. She married a better one. The party money goes to the bottles. I looked at the check. I looked at Natalie. Natalie was crying. Not because of the money, because her mother had just said the thing that Natalie had been waiting years to hear her mother say. I said, Gloria, I can't take this. Gloria looked at me and said, you're not taking it. I'm giving it. There's a difference. The same way there's a difference between delivering pizzas and funding a company. You taught me that difference. Now let me teach you something. When someone in your family offers to help, you say thank you. You don't say no because your pride is louder than your sense. I said, thank you. Gloria nodded. She picked up her fork. She took a bite of her dinner and then, without looking up, she said, the sauce is good, by the way. I've been using it for 3 weeks. Don't tell anyone I said that. Natalie laughed through her tears. Bailey smashed a mashed potato with her fist and looked around the table like she had just accomplished something important, which she had because she was 3. The table felt different. The judgment had been sitting on that table for years, between the salt and the pepper, and now it was gone. And in its place was something that looked like a beginning. 6 weeks later, I walked into a grocery store and went straight to aisle 7. Pasta sauces, marinades, condiments. And there it was, my bottle, my label, my daughter's middle name on the front, sitting on the shelf like it had always been there. I took a photo and sent it to Natalie. She sent back a photo of Bailey holding an identical bottle at home, grinning at the camera, no idea that her name was in 47 stores across 3 states. I didn't send the photo to Gloria. I didn't need to. Because the following Tuesday, my phone buzzed during a delivery. A text from Gloria. No words, just a photo, the shelf, my bottle, her hand holding it, and then a second text that said, aisle 7, next to the pasta sauce, right where it belongs. I finished my shift that afternoon and sat in my car looking at the thermal bag in the passenger seat. I had 11 weeks left before the delivery job became optional. 11 weeks of the company shirt, 11 weeks of the bag. But the bag didn't feel like a bridge anymore. It felt like a foundation. And the foundation was built by a man who got up at 5 5 in the morning and stayed up until midnight and never stopped working, and the never stopping is the ambition. And the ambition was always there, and the always was just waiting for someone to ask.